Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Pond, awards editor of TheWrap, and we're happy to have you here for our showcase of 4 films that are on the Oscars shortlist in the Best International Feature Film category. The films are Great Freedom from Austria, HIVE from Kosovo, I'm Your Man from Germany, and The Good Boss from Spain. We're going to start by showing the trailer to those films, and then I'll be back to have a conversation with the directors of the films. To the audience, please participate in the live chat, share your thoughts about the films, and let us know where you're tuning in from. Now, before I introduce our panel, let's take a look at the trailers.
Die stecken die vom KZ im Bauer. Du kannst es nicht bleiben lassen, oder?
Jemi mbledhur këtu sikur edhe do të bëjmë gjithmonë derisa ta gjejmë secilin person.
Kemi me marrë edhe diçka tjetër këtë muj?
Kena probleme serioze me parën organizat.
Neve nuk na vynë ndihmat, as fondet. Neve na vynë puna. A nuk peshet që as njona nuk jena mira? Kam të dashtë me nisë një punë me kret gratë e krushës. Me marru ajvar për me shqip. Na ajvar kena marru të njëtën. Që të punë di me kry mas mire. Po thojnë, ti shkon agimi gjallë, marre i kishar për teje.
Çka do që të bësh? E rro këtë familjen. Nëse si ti bëhe slab djalin tem, unë hala jam gjallë.
Njerëzit ngajnë, iken, sidomos kur tutën. Që shmoj me ditë që dhe ato e kanë gjujt. Qka nëse ka iknon?
Vetë nuk mund është mi kry këto. Në ke lyp me t'ni mua jo. Qysh për shkon, gra? Lirë. Ja bajmë na di qysh. Veç ti na kalzona mund është me shqip, tjera të krejt na i krymë.
Për mërat, gjumë shindurët.
Spevojmë për ty. Për vetë. Për kretë neve.
Hallo, ich bin Tom und ich würde gern euch den Trailer zu meinem neuen Film Ich bin dein Mensch vorstellen. My apologies, I'm Dan Stevens and this is the trailer for my new film I'm Your Man. Please enjoy.
Da steht ein Mann.
Ach das ist kein Mann. Das ist ein Roboter. Die testen mich, scannen mein Gehirn, Multiple Choice ohne Ende. Und was kommt dann dabei raus?
Dein Traumpartner ist ja schon für dich gebaut.
Pass mal auf, Tom. Ich bin nicht auf der Suche nach einem Partner. Ich gehöre zu den Leuten, die euch 3 Wochen testen und dann ein Gutachten schreiben.
Und an Liebe bist du gar nicht interessiert.
0,0.
Das ist etwas, wovon 93% der deutschen Frauen träumen.
Dann kommst du vielleicht selber drauf, zu welcher Gruppe ich gehöre.
Guten Morgen. Ich weiß nicht, ob es Ihnen auffällt, aber Sie behandeln Tom wie eine Maschine.
Woran liegt das Ihrer Meinung nach? Dass er eine Maschine ist?
Unterschätzen Sie ihn vielleicht?
Also, wie ist das jetzt mit deinem Schwanz? Das ist also der Schwanz, den ich mir wünsche.
Anscheinend.
Es gibt einen Graben zwischen uns.
Ich gehe jetzt zurück und dann werde ich gelöscht. Heißt es bei euch nicht, Liebe überwindet alle Grenzen?
Dazu, er kann doch sprechen, oder?
Tom ist ein freundlicher Roboter.
Sag mal, hat er mich jetzt gerade verarscht?
War einfach so naheliegend.
Tenemos mucho que celebrar. Que gracias a vosotros, hoy somos finalistas del premio que da el gobierno regional a la excelencia empresarial. Es un momento muy delicado. No podemos tener a ese individuo ahí cuando llegue la comisión. ¿Qué nos deja sin premio?
¿Qué dicen las pancartas?
Lo que dicen siempre las pancartas. Nada bueno.
Tenemos problemas peores.
Meise, otra vez. Te veo con la cabeza al otro lado. ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Dónde estás?
Mi mujer dice que necesita aire. ¿Le compro una botella de oxígeno o qué cojones hago yo?
¿Y esas?
Las nuevas.
¿Te acerco?
No es buena idea.
La justicia se tapa los ojos para no influir en lo que juzga.
A mí me encanta que me tapen los ojos también.
Tengo los oídos mal, en el megáfono. Y tuve otitis de pequeño y los tengo muy sensibles.
¿Y qué quieres que haga yo? ¿Te llevo al otorrino? ¿Tú crees que puede montar este escándalo en medio de todo el mundo? Meise está fatal.
Los problemas que yo tenga con mi marido no son cosa tuya.
Perdóname, es que en el momento que perjudican a mi empresa son mis problemas. A veces hay que trucar la balanza para que la medida sea exacta.
¡No contamos!
Excelencia.
Welcome back. It's my pleasure to introduce our 4 directors. From Great Freedom, Sebastian Meise. From HIVE, Blerta Basholli. From I'm Your Man, Maria Schrader. And from The Good Boss, Fernando Leon De Aranoa. Welcome to all of you, and congratulations for getting onto the short list, for making it into the final 15, I guess, out of 93. So I want to start just by going around the panel. I know all of you are either writers or co-writers of your films, in addition to being the directors, and I'm just interested in knowing what led you to this particular story. What made you want to make this movie? And we should talk a little bit about what the films are for the people who haven't seen them. So Sebastian, for you, I mean, it's absolutely shocking that gay men were liberated from Nazi concentration camps at the end of World War II and then sent to jail in West Germany for being gay. But that's the story that you're telling. I mean, how did you come to that story, and why did you want to make a film about it?
Well, we came to it by accidentally. Actually, we had a book of gay history of Hamburg, and there was just a little short note, and it was telling the story of gay men who were liberated by the Allies, actually, and by the Americans, and were put into prison again to serve their remaining sentences. And this sounded so surreal in a way. So we started researching, and this continuity was really disturbing in a way. So we got deeper into the story of this paragraph, and all the victims of this paragraph in the post-war era in Germany.
Mm-hmm. How did you come to decide that you would tell this story through the eyes of basically one person who keeps going to jail over and over again over a period of decades?
Yeah, well, I mean, we wanted to cover the whole post-war era until the paragraph was amended in '69, and we conducted a series of interviews with people who were in prison again and again and again, and who were unable to have a normal life, you know. And because if you forbid love, I mean, your life is forbidden, basically. And then we said, okay, we show his life based on his imprisonments, because that's the way he's living. That's the life he's having, because the way he's going out of jail, in the minute he's serving his sentence, he's persecuted again, because he can't change what he is, you know. So being locked up in a system that forbids him is basically his life.
Yeah. Blerta, how about Hive? I mean, it's the story of a real woman who, after the wars of the 1990s, her husband had disappeared, and she started her own business, which was not, I guess, a popular thing. I mean, women were supposed to be sitting there and waiting for the men to return. How did you encounter her, and why did you want to make a film about her?
Well, yes, I heard about the story on TV, first of all, and all I come from Kosovo, I was surprised as well and intrigued by it, because it was a story about a woman who lost her husband during the war, and she took a driving license and started to work, and people prejudiced her about it. So even for me, that was really interesting to hear, although I'm born and raised in Pristina in Kosovo, and I'm still talking to you from there. But I really just wanted to meet this woman. So when I went to meet her in person, it was actually her personality, the way she talked about everything she's been through, the way she spoke about overcoming every obstacle that she had. I also met her 2 days ago, because we shot a video with her, and she never ceased to amaze me and inspire me, because she decided to just never stop. And beside all the pain that she went through, beside all the obstacles, having to raise 2 kids, having to deal with trauma after the war, when she came back after leaving her village, she found her house burnt in the ground, and she didn't find her husband. So all that pain and all the prejudice she got after the war, she decided not to give up. And to me, as I said, seeing her 2 days ago, it's still really inspiring and gives me hope when I see all these women together, how they still work together, and how it was difficult to bring them together at the beginning. But after she managed to bring them together, they kind of formed this community of support and of building something together. And for me, that was really inspiring, because we all have our difficulties. We all have a moment when we want to give up, and it's difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to make a film, sometimes it's difficult to do everything. But when you think of a person like Fahriye Hoti, when you think of women from Tusha who had were in situations, give up every minute and every day, they decided to somehow stand up and move on. It gave me hope, and I really just hope that this character is going to give hope to people, and certainly Hive is kind of giving, in a way, hope to people of Kosovo so far.
Mm-hmm. Did her personality affect the way you wanted to shoot the film?
Completely. At the beginning, I kind of I did treat short films like serious matters, but with a little bit of a satirical approach, maybe a more comic moments of it, maybe because we lived in strange times. Besides the war in Kosovo, we really lived a long time of occupation. And even I, who have gone through it, when I think what we've witnessed and how we kind of try to make a living and we try to just live, it's strange and difficult. And I think we sometimes really dealt with it, just joking about it, and very dark humor, but kind of really coping with it. So I kind of, at the beginning, thought that I want to approach the film with that kind of approach. But when I met Fahriye, she really felt like a hero to me, like a superhero, but like a real human being hero. So in that sense, I really wanted, after meeting her, I really wanted to have this real hero, a strong character on screen, and be as realistic as possible, because she felt realistic to me. And when I asked her, did you cry? Because it felt a little bit unbelievable for me, for her to overcome everything. So it felt like she could just do it all. She was like, yes, I cried every day, and then I wiped my tears and went to work. And that really gave me a hint of like, yes, this is a hero, but it's a human being. And I'm going to approach this story really focused on her and as realistic as possible, and as realistic and authentic as much as I know to do it, and really try to portray her real in the best and honest way, in a way.
Right. Maria, how about I'm Your Man? I mean, I know it came from a short story, basically about a professional woman who gets to try out a robot who is built to be her perfect man, played by Dan Stevens. What was it about the short story that made you think, yep, this is a movie?
Yes, Steve, when I hear Blerta talking about being so inspired by a real person, this is probably the opposite where we started. We started to invent a creature, which was a wonderful process. Yes, I heard about this short story, and the premise of the short story is something we adapted into our script. It's that you can design an individualized, perfect partner for you. We are all surrounded by algorithms and by artificial intelligence. So I think it's about time to think about what happens when technique is so advanced that we cannot distinguish it any longer from humans. And I was very intrigued to, first of all, do a love story. It's a simple setup. And to also investigate the human condition for love, so to say, because Tom, the machine, the robot, and contrary to a lot of other stories about, creatures, man-built creatures, he is a kind individual, and he is in so many things much better than we are. And he has this one goal. He wants to make Alma happy. And you cannot take everything he offers just because he is a machine. And that is a very interesting question to be answered by all of us. Why is it really that we only can share love with humans? And what is it exactly what makes us human?
Mm-hmm. Right. I know I've talked to Dan about this, and he said that you guys were taking some of your cues from old comedies with Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart and that kind of. I mean, were you thinking of those kind of films as you were making this one?
Well, yes. It's basically, it starts like a very classical romantic comedy, The Impossible Match, right? And we were thinking about that this machine is fed by algorithms with all these details of a perfect man, like a very...
Oh, you're muted, Maria.
All right. I'm sorry. So, yes, Tom is created by algorithms. And of course, I mean, also for me, Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, these are role models. So the robot tries to imitate the perfect man. And that is, of course, fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Fernando, how about you? I mean, The Good Boss is also a comedy of sorts, but it's a very black comedy, and about the owner of a factory who has a chance to win an award, and it basically makes him nuts, and he's not a very good boss. What where did the story come from for you, and why did you want to make a movie?
And he will do whatever thing he needs to do, no, to get that award. No? It's I guess that I have been always interested on what happens on workplaces, no, workspaces, no, because by the end probably is where we spend most of our lives, no, in working and spending time with our colleagues, even sometimes more than even with our own family, no. And then I'm interested in that also in that particular places on power, no, on the use and abuse of power and how it works, how are those dynamics. I think the film explores on that, no, on what happens when we have some power or some other people, and so we will use it or we won't. Is it ethics? Is it moral? But so maybe we say no, we won't. No, but what if we really need it? No? What if we really need it? What if we really need it to get what we really want? No, and maybe we will use it. No? And I think that the film explores on that. I mean, I as mentioned, I was very interested in this kind of issues and in this kind of dynamics. And then I've met some people who's very close to this boss. I mean, who's very close to this character in the film. Maybe they won't go that far, but they can go really far. And then I heard of somebody somebody who's close to me, and this person who I know, he was dealing with his workers in that way. No, he was going too far into their personal lives, because this is the other part. No, how professional relationships interact with personal relationships. No, in this kind of places. And for this character, I thought, I like the idea of this good boss going too far, no, in the personal lives of the people that work for him, and trying to fix their personal lives, even sometimes even their sentimental problems, no, in order to help them. But I mean, behind it, for sure, he's trying also to improve the production of his company. No, I mean, he thinks if this guy if these people is happy, no. Even if at their homes and at the relationships, they will work much better, and they will. So this is how he performs with them. First, in the beginning, in a more, in a smaller way. I mean, he doesn't go that far, but when he really needs it, he will go much farther, no? And he will cross every single line, no? He needs to do in order to get what he wants, no. But I thought this idea was both funny. I mean, when I was thinking of this character, it's fun. I mean, in the beginning, it's fun. No, he won't be that fun later on. No, but at the same time, I felt that it was giving me the chance to tell about all of that, and it was also it's also terrible what he's doing. No, but fun at the same time. And I was interested in this kind of mix, no, to tell about that dynamics. No?
Yeah, I mean, you've worked with Javier Bardem a couple times before. Was it always clear that he was the guy?
Well, I started working as a screenwriter in my career, and then as a screenwriter, you usually don't think of the actors because it's not your choice. I mean, it's like somebody else is doing that for you. So I still keep that kind of I keep that way, no, because I keep that way. I like to work like that because then I don't think of a particular actor. I prefer to think of just the character, because sometimes I think that if you think of the actor, you will end up writing things for that actor, things that he will do very well. And I don't think that's a good idea, nor for me, nor for the actor. No, I think it's much better to write the script in a free way. So the actor will have to do will have to approach to the character and look for him. And so for me, no? But then that was the beginning of the process. No? But then at some moment very early, I thought of him because, as you mentioned, we have worked before, and I felt that he could brought a wonderful performance for this boss, no? Because the character has this strong charisma and this strong that I felt that Javier could perfectly bring, no? Besides some other things, of course.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's talk about what the specific challenges were for each of you on your films. I mean, Sebastian, was there what were the elements of great freedom for you that were the biggest challenges to pull off? Because it is a complicated film in the way it jumps through time, and and does so mostly during blackouts. He's thrown into solitary confinement. He's in the dark. We sit in the dark for a minute, and when there's light again, it's a different time.
This for sure was not so easy, but in the end, it was we edited exactly the way we've written it, but yeah, it's somehow it worked out. I don't know, but the shooting was not so easy. Maybe we shot in a real prison, which was I mean, it was an abandoned prison, but still it was very cold in winter. We had not much space at all. It was dark, and yeah, and then we had the COVID break. This was the most challenging, maybe. So we had to stop shooting, and didn't know if we could finish the film, and didn't know if we could continue shooting. So this was probably the most challenging. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Blerta, how about for you? I mean, what were the biggest challenges for HIVE?
Well, for me, it was, I guess when you're basing the film on a true story and the real woman is alive and she has gone through a lot already in her life, for me, it was a lot thinking about what part of her story, first of all, do I want to focus the film on, and because she has gone through a lot. So I was, at the beginning, I did have parts of the war and the husband in the film, but then I wanted to keep the film in the present tense and wanted to keep more the empowerment and her triumph part rather than maybe use flashbacks or anything like that to like tell the beginning of how everything ended up to be like this. But at the whole time, for me, she was in my mind because we had all the rights to her story and everything we need to do legally. But for me, morally, it would have not been okay to continue with this film if she didn't like the film at the end. So a lot of times I was thinking about her, what she's going to say when she sees the film, and how can I also kind of honor what she did and tell the people the story the way it was. So for me, that was a little bit of a burden on the way, and I couldn't help myself to think about it the whole time. And so I was quite in stress until Fahriye actually saw the film, and you know, we're still friends, and she liked the film. So in a way, I really was, I think it was one of the best days after starting to shoot. But as Sebastian mentioned, pandemic hit, and we were in post-production when pandemic hit, and I literally locked the film in Zoom, which was the most stressful film. We were almost till the end of editing. My editor was in Prague. He's Enis Sarachi. He was a student then, and I was in Prague, and my whole family was in Kosovo, so it was a whole drama. I kind of wanted to log the film, but then my producer called me and told me, Blerta, you have kids, your family is in Kosovo, you should come back immediately. So we kind of decided about the last scene of the film in the Zoom, which was, yeah, one of the most stressful days in my life, to say picture locked on Zoom, but we had to do what we had to do.
Yeah. Maria, what about for you? I mean, what were the? I think of the film, and I think calibrating the level of roboticness in the character of Tom must have been tricky, because he's got to be somebody who can pass for human for almost everybody on screen, but we can't lose sight of the fact that he's a robot. Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry, Steve. Yeah, that is very well put. And it was one of the initial questions we asked ourselves, how much of the machine should be visible and interfering with the love story. I think it was challenging to find the right actor in the first place, to find both right actors. Someone so human like Maren Eggert, so unpredictable, and someone so good looking and perfect and a foreigner who still speaks German, who has humor and self-irony. So that was the first challenge. And then, of course, we decided to not invent a future world, but it's almost a theatrical setup. There is this agreement with the audience. Dan Stevens is a machine, even though we never see he is a machine. He looks very human. So there is this very simple setup, which starts very comedic, and that was probably a challenge to make it funny, and at the same time to lead it someplace else into a real question, a real encounter, a real a bigger question. Who are we, and why do we connect to each other? And at the end of the day, it's there is a sadness in it. It's about loneliness of creatures, of humans, as well as the future inhabitants of the world. That was to explore this and to still be, I could call it, courageous enough to not use any tools for it. It's almost it's a very simple stage, and to calibrate that is a very good word for it. Also between lightness and drama, and then yes, of course, we started shooting during the pandemic, and I was very lucky that the producer said, no, this is a love story. It starts in a ballroom. We have 70 people here dancing and flirting and touching each other. That was very challenging, and we postponed this to the last day of shooting. And then when we finally got there and we installed this ballroom and we had the live music and everyone was dancing, it was almost like it was the same with what I wished for the whole movie. It was funny watching Dan Stevens doing the Roomba, and at the same time, there was something melancholic above the whole room because we hadn't been out dancing, seeing each other lighthearted for so long. It almost felt like from, a historic time.
Yeah. Fernando, how about you? I mean, what were the particular challenges of The Good Boss?
Yeah, one of them, I'm afraid it's pretty similar to things that they mentioned, which is the pandemics again. We were filming in the second peak of the pandemics. I actually remember that on my first shooting day, when I was in the car very early in the morning, I was listening in the radio, the president of our government declaring the emergency state or something like that. And I was thinking, we want to make it. It's going to be difficult because we were going through checkpoints every day, and I mean they were blocking neighborhoods, so you never know if we were going to be able to film or if we weren't. And then that was one of the things. I mean, we took good care of it. I mean, we were going through tests almost every week, every Monday, and trying to create a safe environment, especially for the actors who were in front of the camera. That for us, it was, of course, using masks and everything, but I was concerned about the actors. And remember with Javier, with Javier's character, we always thought of that character like it's like a touchy person. He's always touching the people, in his workers, on the face, on the shoulders. It's like he's owning them, in the way he touches them. And at that moment, it was very difficult because we all have been 6 months without doing that. I mean, and it was very weird when we all started touching people, and then you couldn't notice that on the frame, in front of the camera. So we tried. I mean, I think one of the challenges was to create that safe environment so they could be really easy in front of the camera and touch each other's, and I think that worked. They did very well. And then to mention something different, I think the other part, maybe the other challenge for the tone of the film, was to have this balance we mentioned before with both drama and humor in the film, which both are very strong. I mean, somehow, I mean, drama sometimes is very strong in the film, but also humor goes very far away. And to keep that balance, I mean, was also challenging, no? Because that was very clear in my mind. I mean, when I was writing the script, I could see it very easily. No, it was like, this is perfect. This is gonna work. No, this mix of drama and humor. You know, when you are writing, everything is fine. I mean, it's in your head. So, but then you need to bring that until the end. I mean, and in order to do that, I mean, you need, of course, everybody involved. I mean, actors, crew, a musician, editor, to help you, know, to keep that kind of balance, not so subtle between drama and humor. And it's much easier when you are, on your own at your place writing, than when you have to keep that balance through the filming with each one of the actors, and then in the editing room for sure. And then later on, even with the music, I was very worried about the music, because that particular tone, I think it's pretty difficult. And I think the musician, she did a great work because she found it. But we were through all the process through that year. I mean, looking for that precise tone for every piece of the film, and then by the end it had to be there. And still, you don't know up to the moment that you show the film to the audience. Just a couple of days before the premiere, which was in San Sebastian, we were you are still doubting about it. But then until the moment that the audience is there and they go, then you understand. If you manage, if you did well, I mean, everything is the way it should be, And so, and I think it was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, looking at the Oscar shortlist this year, Maria and Blerta, you're two of, I think, 4 women on the shortlist, which is, I think there were 4 or 5 last year. It used to be very rare, but it's becoming less so. And I look at, the countries, Blerta Kosova has submitted films from women 3 of the last 4 years, and Germany has done it 3 years in a row now. So for both of you, was directing something that felt accessible to you, or do you feel like you had to work, had to fight harder than a man would to get into this world as you were coming up?
I'll talk from a country, the patriarchal society. Luckily, I mean, we do live in patriarchal society, and maybe that's why Faria's story really was something that I wanted to tell, because I lived in a better situation that Faria did, but in many senses, there's still certain things that are expected to be done by women on daily basis just because you're a woman. And I hope soon enough we're not going to have to talk about women directors and women expectations about women. But it's true, and it's still going on in Kosovo and everywhere else in the world. But as you mentioned, Kosovo is a small country. It only produces very few films a year. We can't even say we have a film industry, but luckily those films are usually selected based on quality. And luckily enough, a lot of women filmmakers are making films. And only this year, besides also, we've submitted a lot of women filmmaker films for Oscars. And as you've interviewed, I know when we spoke on the last interview, you interviewed many of them, and you've seen their films. They're all really beautiful films. Only this year, there's been 4 feature films by women filmmakers traveling in festivals around the world. So it's really something that is happening, and a lot of women filmmakers are making films. And plus I was the last kid at home, so my parents didn't really push me to become a doctor. So when I told them that I'm going to film school, they were like, oh, at least we have one artist, because they have one doctor, they have an engineer, they have the pharmacist, so I can be an artist. So in that sense, I was lucky to have women filmmakers before me and women filmmaker friends who were doing films at the same time with me. So I didn't particularly have to fight harder to make a film. It just felt great to be around those women.
Right. Maria, what about you? I mean, I know, obviously Germany is a less patriarchal society. I suppose you started as an actress, right?
That is true, yes. And well, first of all, I think, you know, four films out of 15 is even above average, like above the percentage, at least in Germany, of, you know, I think we are still below 20% of female directors within the big picture. And and we shouldn't forget that. I'm surrounded by men who are saying, oh, I want to be a woman right now. I want to be a female director. You know, you're so wanted. And yes, you're right. The last 3 years, we had female directors representing the country, and still there are, you know, it's not even a fourth of all the directors who are females. And yes, I mean, it's a particular entry probably which I took into making films. I've been an actress or an actor for the longest time, and I think some of the doubts in the beginning were not only due to the fact that I was a woman, but also being an actor, you know, turning sides. And it's very hard to interpret the reactions of people around you. I feel privileged, and I had a great producer in the beginning who very much encouraged me to not play the lead in the first script I had written on my own, but to go behind the camera and do it as my first feature film. I still don't know if I would have been the one to say, I want to direct this. I was encouraged, and it's a long time ago, but I think it's still more difficult.
Right. Yeah. So, Sebastian, I feel like, you know, your film is set in a specific time. It starts in the late 1940s, post World War II, and continues basically to the end of the 60s. But you know, it doesn't feel like a period piece, because the idea of, you know, discrimination against gays, against, you know, LGBTQ rights, all of that is very much, you know, a concern right now. I mean, as you were making it, were you thinking of its relevance to the current time?
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, it is still very much, very much a topic in the world. I mean, and conservative forces are coming back even in democratic societies. I mean, we see it in Europe, in Hungary, in Poland, and even in Austria, Germany. I mean, in the US, basically everywhere. The ultra conservatives are coming back, and they're endangering our democratic rights in a way. And of course, this was something we had in mind. I mean, also that we don't know very much about about queer history in Germany or in Austria. We don't learn it in school. These paragraphs went on until the 90s, late 90s, and there was no, there was no money paid to the victims. It was, we had no, there was not much, not many people want to know these things, I mean, concerning gay rights, many things had happened in the last 10 years, 15 years, but I think they're endangered again as the conservative forces are coming back.
Mm-hmm. Right. I also feel like, you know, Maria, your movie is set in the future, in some sort of unspecified future that doesn't seem too far away, but at the same time, you know, every time I go on Facebook, I'm having a relationship with an algorithm. So it does feel like, you know, making a movie about that relationship is in one way is in the realm of science fiction, and in the other way is as current as our computer screens.
Yes, I think it's quite timely, and we should prepare ourselves for questions we don't yet have an answer to. At least, speaking for me, it was interesting to explore this fairy tale. It is a fairy tale. I do think that at one point we will meet our better alter egos, the machines, and it was also very interesting to imagine that these machines are even more civilized than we are, and we might end up with our, very human imperfections, which because yet we praise all our achievements, the empathy, the reflection, the reason, and at the same time, I think we are ruining the world. And if I would imagine a civilization of Toms, of these machines, they would probably solve the climate crisis in an instant, because they're not driven by egotistic self-fulfillment powers like we are. So yes, Alma sees herself as the imperfect creature versus Tom.
Mm-hmm. Right. With HIVE, Blerta, are you thinking not just about telling this particular story, but about talking about life for women in a patriarchy and in the aftermath of loss even now?
Well, to me, I thought it's still relevant in one way or another, because of course, Kosovo is a more patriarchal society, maybe more than a lot of other countries. But I think we still have a lot more work to do before we call ourselves equal in many countries. We've witnessed a lot of movements in US, and then we've seen a lot of abuses and a lot of other things just because there's a woman, or rights taken either at work or anywhere else just because they're women. So in that sense, I think we have a lot to work on, and I thought people are going to relate to it in that sense. But also for me, it was really relevant to talk about it, especially in these times of pandemic, but everything that we might be going through in our lives, that when you see a character like Fahriye, and as I said at the beginning, I really just hope that the way she gave me hope, I hope it's going to give hope to a lot of people, and not just women, to men, boys, women, girls, everyone, because if you relate to her as a human to human, I think there's a lot to see in her to be encouraged by, because if she could find the strength to stand up and move on, I think we all can. And in that sense, it really touched me, and I really hope that it's going to talk to people even today and every day, and hopefully give them hope and be able to move on no matter what.
Right. Fernando, I mean, obviously, workplace abuses and, bad bosses are something we've all dealt with. But I also wonder, you made a movie about the horrible lengths that people will go to win awards, and now you've made the shortlist for the Oscars. Can you enjoy the irony there?
Yeah, sure I can. Yeah, this is something we have made fun through the last few months when the film was getting some nominations, also in Spain, and then how far would we go? I can promise that we won't go that far. I don't have a wall like the character at his place with the awards and everything. No, yeah. Actually, in the film, I remember when I was writing the script that this is an important week for the main character, because he's waiting for this commission and for the award. No? And somebody was telling me, when they read the script, it wouldn't be much better if they are looking for something bigger, like some Chinese companies gonna buy the scales factory, and I was thinking that no, it was much better this other way around. I mean, something very, very small, like getting this award, which by the end is an award to transparency, to excellence, to fairness, and he's fighting so hard to get this award in a way which is not fair at all. It's not, it's not. There is no justice at all. I mean, in this place, not even in the factory, and he's still fighting so hard to get this award. And so I felt it was interesting to talk also about this petty thing, no, of the vanity and how important is for him this award, because I think that's also part of life, no? And that's also very present. No? But then, I mean, you mentioned this thing of the abuse, the use and abuse of the power for this, and for sure that's the focus of the film. That's in the focus of the film. But also, I wanted to explore not only in the scenes of the boss or the scenes of the owner of the factory, but also in the scenes of the workers. No, I mean, because this is something, for this group of workers in this factory, is like they don't help each other. I mean, there is no a strong sense of solidarity. There is no like a working class identity where which can help them, no, when they are in such a bad position, no? Like they are in the film. Actually, when they fire one of the workers, nobody's going there to support him. Nobody's standing for him. Nobody's, because they have fear. I mean, which is something that I think it happens very often, especially nowadays, especially today, in a lot of workspaces, no? And where there are no, that kind of solidarity, that kind of class identity is more, at least today, in Spain, is more related to other kind of people, no, and especially in the industry, but not for this one. So I was also trying to tell about what happens when that doesn't exist, no, and about the bad situation in which those workers can be, no, if there is not that kind of union between them.
Right. Well, they're all, really timely, powerful, and entertaining films. We could keep talking for quite a while here, but I think we need to wrap it up. But congratulations to all of you. For the audience out there, thank you for joining us today. And if you enjoyed this conversation, you can take advantage of our free trial, TheWrap Pro, and be the first to know about upcoming screenings and get access to exclusive content and premium events. You can also get screening information and see past screenings that you might have missed at TheWrap.com by clicking on the events tab. So thank you all, and
thank you
thank you for your films.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.